Hello and welcome to another episode of the DJ Project Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 353, Sólo pareja, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, 1991. And now for something completely different. Again, this is why I like doing these all in Spine orders, because it gives a little bit of variety. So you're not stuck with doing just one string of films in one particular way. And as I've said before, while it's great to look at films that do things a little differently, it's also really nice to sit back and just be entertained, to have a good time, to have a good laugh, to follow something that's more or less straightforward. So actually this is going to be one of those fairly easy reviews because there's really not that much to say about it, except that it's really, really good. It's really entertaining. It's really funny. This is, first off, this is the first feature film of Alfonso Cuarón, and if you've ever thought that he was just, these, like, if you just know him from Y tu Mama También or Children of Men, especially Children of Men, like if you think that he's just very kind of heavy and dealing with social themes and grit and everything. This is none of that. This owes a lot to screwball comedy, particularly of Lubitsch, and even to a certain extent the sex comedies that you find in the 70s and 80s, like the stuff that Blake Edwards had made, and to a certain extent Porky's, I guess. So it's that kind of comedy done right. Now, here's sort of a general, my general cinematic viewing philosophy. As much as I like things that go against conventions or that things that dare to do things differently, I'm not unilaterally opposed to conventional films. Sometimes you need a conventional film just to give yourself a break, to give yourself an expected pattern. But when I do see a conventional film, I want it done right. And furthermore, I want it to be just as entertaining as the films that have come before it, if not even more so. So first and foremost, you should have the right elements. You should have the right components. And it should have the right tone, and it should make you laugh. But I also don't want just a mere throwback, because the easiest thing to do is let's just remake past screwball comedies, and that's not really it either. It's if you're going to evoke the past, it should be a springboard, and it should lead you into something else and something more relevant. And this film is a really good example of this. By the way, the original title, Sólo pareja, it literally translates to "only with your partner," and this was based on a ad slogan from a AIDS awareness group in Mexico, and the full slogan is "only with your partner or use a condom." So, so you can kind of tell what this is, what this covers. Now, the structure of it, the tone of it, is very much like a screwball comedy. Not quite a comedy of remarriage, like, say, the Philadelphia Story, but certainly a screwball comedy, and also like sex comedies. And the central character is named Tomas. He works in advertising, and he's a womanizer. He has all kinds of flings. At one point, there is a printout of a list of all the women he's at, and it takes up several pages. So he's a Don Juan type in a ridiculous way, and that's kind of the point. And the thing is, everything about this is ridiculous. I know I've talked a lot about realism and authenticity and naturalism, but it doesn't mean that I'm unilaterally opposed to non-realism or contrivance. Again, what I fundamentally look for is something that's done right. And I certainly am looking for something that's not insulting or is not stupid or has no basis in any kind of reality. I think that's what makes it work, is that on the one hand it's very ridiculous, but on the other hand it does make some comments on things. And what happens to him is one of his attempts is with a nurse. And this leads into the classic scenario where he has two gates going on at the same time and he has to go back and forth between one of them. Again, a very, a very, not cliche scene, but a stock comedy scene. But it's done very well. And it's done fairly interestingly well. It's straightforward, it does its job, but it doesn't do it in a very insulting, stupid way. I've seen that scenario played out in stupid ways, and believe me, this is not done stupidly. So, nurse is upset by all of this. Hello, nurse. Now that I got that out of the way, moving on. Upset by all of this, she decides to play a really bad joke on him, which was the reason why he sees this nurse is because he feels that there's something wrong with him. And he has to do all kinds of blood tests, and one of them is to be tested for if he's HIV positive or not. And so she decides to play this, so you can kind of see where this is going, where in his copy of the test results, she marks that he is HIV positive. And obviously he doesn't take this particularly well. Also in the meantime, he sees his new neighbor who works as a flight attendant or stewardess, take your pick, and is absolutely in love with her. It's like she's the one. She's perfect. She fulfills fantasies. My conquests and my exploits, all that is now over. I want to devote myself completely to her. Of course, she's already engaged. It's like, damn it. And then he later finds out that he's supposedly HIV positive. So he goes into a bit of a tailspin. He tries to commit suicide in kind of the stupidest. One of them is it's set up that there was an American woman, and remember this is 1991, but there was an American girl who decided to dry off her French poodle, and she did so by sticking the dog in the microwave. And it ends up cooking and frying the poor thing. So inspired by a phone message left by his mother, one of his suicide attempts is that he tries to cook himself in the microwave. Forget the fact that you have to actually close the door in order to get the damn thing to work. But anyways. Bottom line, this is just amusing. I think I could just stop there, but I'll finish up a little bit. But needless to say, it does end it does have kind of a happy ending, but it's not done in a very sappy way. If anything, there's a little bit of a not cynical edge to it, but there's elements of dark humor. Like his doctor does not Thomas keeps leaving messages to his doctor that he's going to attempt suicide. And each message he gets more and more angry, and the secretary gets more and more angry relaying all these messages. But initially, the doctor is not, doesn't take it very seriously. In fact, kind of makes a joke out of it. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. The characteristic of the doctor, Matteo, he often speaks, if he's not using stock Latin phrases, he's also quoting scripture, blaming on the Jesuits. And his wife, Teresa, speaks in Proverbs. So, and at a certain point, they wear sweaters where his sweater says M and her sweater says T. So, this has no basis in reality whatsoever, but it's also, again, it's not insulting. It's not stupid. Again, this is screwball comedy done right. This is a sex comedy done right. In fact, this is what I find particularly refreshing. I think I think romantic comedies and most comedies are abysmal. They're not really funny. They depend on a lot of stock things, a lot of overused jokes. There's gross out humor. There's that god awful movie 43. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? So watching this, even though this was made in 1991, even though this was made in Mexico, and this was actually done to try to revive Mexican cinema, to keep it out of its complacency, and to try to do something a little different, something a little bit more relevant, something a little bit more interesting, and not in an overt way. I think it was done in a fairly straightforward. But for at that time, it was fresh, because Mexican cinema was not going to these kinds of places. But Alfonso Cuarón wanted to go to those places at the time, and it worked. And I think that's what also makes it work, is that everybody in it loved doing it, and you can tell that it was done with love and care. And maybe this is what irritates me the most out of most films that are made today, is that I feel like films that are made nowadays, people don't care. People don't give a shit. They treat this like a job. They treat this in the same way that most people treat their office drone jobs. They're just there to collect a paycheck. They much rather be doing something else, and that's a little bit insulting for two reasons. One, there are plenty of people who would love to have their jobs, but yet you're still keeping it. So why don't we do like a prisoner of war exchange? And then the second thing is, if you don't care about what it is that you're doing as either a writer or a director or an actor, then why the fuck should I care as a viewer? It works both ways. If you make that investment, if you put that effort into what you do, whether it's in the writing, in the directing, in the performance, and all those things, then the chances are the audience is going to respond too. And that's really all you can really say about this film, is that it does it really, really well. Is it an absolute masterpiece? No. But I don't think it had any ambitions to be a masterpiece. I think it was meant to be a fairly straightforward, very enjoyable film. And in that sense, it succeeds by leaps and bounds. And the fact that this has been around for over 20 years, and it's still fresh and entertaining. Again, this was I mentioned the title. The title that's used for the English markets is "Love in the Time of Hysteria," and it was also a reflection of what was going on in the 90s. Again, the whole AIDS plot point was because of how AIDS was, a combination of how AIDS was viewed at the time, and also what was, if it was left unchecked, or if it was left to kind of go around, then it could turn into a real problem. And so if it did try to make, but ultimately it was more for entertainment. It wasn't done to make this big, profound social satire. But having said all that, I think the best comedies do serve as a kind of social critique. But it doesn't have to beat you over the head with it, and you end up being entertained all the same. So I would say that if you want a refresher of what makes a good comedy, like if you're somebody that just goes to the multiplex and you see what passes for comedy, you go, I'm not fucking interested in any of this, just turn right around, subscribe to Hulu Plus, go to a store, pick up Sólo, pareja, and just get that, and then all will be fine. If you feel that screwball comedies died after the 50s, there hasn't been a good screwball comedy since the 50s, if there hasn't been a good sex comedy since the 70s, this is reassurance. Now, the only sad thing is that this was made in 1991, and it kind of makes you wonder, why are we still making stuff like this now? And hopefully, maybe some of you will go, you know what, we need to do something about it. And as soon as a good, and that's the other thing, I'm pretty open to genres. I'm pretty open to most genres and styles. As long as, but all I ask is that they are good, that they are well made, that there is some care put into this. As soon as there's a title where I get the slightest hint that people don't care and it comes off as stupid, I am immediately not interested. I'm not going to waste my time with it, especially if it's a genre I don't normally go out of my way to do. I may be a little bit more forgiving with stuff that I do like, but even then I will not look on it particularly favorably. So, like I said, this is screwball comedy done right. This is sex comedy done right. And it owes to the past, but at the same time it puts a slightly new spin on it. And particularly it's relevant. It was relevant for its moment. It's still fairly relevant today, which I don't know what that says about human progress over the last 22 years. But if you like any of those, you'll definitely like this. And if you think that if you don't believe that Alfonso Cuarón has a sense of humor, check this out. So, yeah. Solo con tu pareja. And until next time, take care.